Welcome, gentle listener. I am Baldermort, your faithful servant, and I wish to introduce you to the important forces, factions, and units of the Warhammer 40k universe. The grim darkness of the far future, where there is no time for peace, there is only time for war. If you are a regular, gentle listener, then I would ask that you check that you are still subscribed and have notifications on. If not, then do consider subscribing, as then you will not miss out on ongoing narratives, if that sort of thing appeals to you. And today, we are to discuss the twisted Librarians of the Traitor Legions, or corrupted fallen chapters. But that description is minimizing the issue to a near criminal degree. Firstly, I would like us to hear the exact definitions from the 8th edition Chaos Codex, but then also that of the Thousand Sun Sorcerers and their exalted leaders, so we can gain a complete picture. I shall go on to what I consider to be the most important elements of them and why I think the Codex entry does not really go far enough. And so, as usual, for the very basics, let us lean on existing wisdom. To quote, Sorcerers. Sorcerers of chaos shape destiny itself with arcane rituals and unspeakable pacts with the malefic entities of the Empyrean. They channel the soul-blasting energies of the warp into potent hexes and blasts of weird flame. And they mold the fabric of the material universe with little more than a hate-filled curse. Because of their constant exposure to the power of chaos, sorcerers are inevitably haunted by the prospect of eventually succumbing to crippling mutation or insanity. Though they believe they are above mortal concerns, the truth is that they, too, are pawns, raised up and then expended by the dark gods for their own amusement. The line between psychic power and sorcery is fine indeed. The chapters of the Adeptus Astartes may seek to deny it, but every time a Space Marine librarian calls upon his mental might, he risks tainting his soul. In the heat of battle, even the most capable psyker may overreach his abilities, and instead of recoiling in horror from the resultant carnage, he may feel a forbidden thrill. Such emotions are the first step on a path to limitless evil. From that moment on, the psyker may endure honeyed whispers in his dreams and visions of immortality. Those who succumb to such temptations become sorcerers, able to channel the malefic power of the warp. Sorcerers are forever driven to expand their influence and knowledge. They see themselves as having ascended, no longer hindered by blind loyalty to the corpse lord of the Imperium. They become even more callous and inhumane than those who follow them. Some are cold-hearted strategists who vent their hate upon as much of the universe as possible. Yogasmor the Deceiver once orchestrated a doomsday cult that resulted in the depopulation of every inhabited world of the Coriolis system. Others act as advisors for the Lords of Chaos, subtly redirecting them to their own ends under the illusion of servitude. A rare few roam the hidden paths of the universe, unlocking the secrets of the ancients to better plunge the galaxy into the embrace of chaos. Regardless of their goals, all sorcerers revel in the anarchy of the Long War. It takes only a flicker of resistance to spur them into unleashing the destructive energies of the Immaterium. Their bitterness manifests upon the battlefield as a palpable force. Red-hot skulls hammer down from the skies. Diseases choke the souls of those nearby, and men are turned into monsters in their wake. The martial prowess common to all Chaos Space Marines is magnified greatly when combined with the powers of the sorcerer. Baleful artifacts saturated with the energies of chaos that can rip the soul from the body of their victim. Thousand Suns Sorcerers. A sorcerer strides to the battlefield, wreathed in scintillating flames and clouds of crackling etheric lightning. With a cruel gesture, he bends the fabric of time and space to his will, crushing the bones of his enemies in enfolding pockets of reality, or flinching the sanity from their minds with a blasphemous whisper. Each sorcerer is nightmare given mortal form, capable of harnessing fear and anger to drive an opposing army to tear itself apart. Sorcerers serve as leaders in the multitudinous thrall bands of the Thousand Sons. It is they who command the marching ranks of the Rubricae on the front lines, and funnel screaming hordes of cultists and Zangors towards the enemy. As the insanity surrounding the sorcerer floods the battlefield, they intone rituals of summoning to draw Tzeentch's demonic children through the veil between real space and the immaterium. A sorcerer often has free rein to prosecute the psychic warfare as they see fit, but their actions are ultimately in service to their sect, and to a more powerful exalted sorcerer or demon prince. Despite their enthrallment, sorcerers are creatures of rampant ambition. As they serve their masters, they also seek ways to undermine them, drawing power from secret cabals and forming treacherous pacts with empiric entities. As a sorcerer grows in power, he risks succumbing to the weight of his own warp energy. Many fall to uncontrolled mutation and become polymorphic chaos spawn. Yet their ambition drives them to take ever greater risks in the pursuit of power, for they hope one day to attain the rank of exalted sorcerer, and from there to become a blessed demon prince of Tzeentch. On occasion, a powerful warp mage from another Chaos Legion will be guided by Tzeentch to seek out the planet of the sorcerers and pledge his existence to Magnus. However, most of the Thousand Sun sorcerers arise from the ranks of the aspiring sorcerers. These undermages are created from the psykers of Tzeentchian cults, who through profane demagoguery draw the attention of an invading sect. They are taken to Tizca, where they are subjected to ritual transformations to enhance their body and mind. Most are driven mad, or are torn apart by the sudden influx of empiric energy. Others die slow and agonizing deaths, as warp-drenching augmentative organs mutate the host body. But those few who survive are born anew, as witch warriors of the Thousand Suns. Exalted Sorcerers. Amongst the manifold warp wielders of the Thousand Suns, there are those whose skill, cunning, and naked ambition burn bright as a raging star. For these sorcerers, the power that can be achieved within the Legion is bound only by the limits of their own sanity, and they delve ever further into the most forbidden psychic discipline to perfect their ruinous spellcraft. Those whose souls are not torn to shreds by the empiric forces they encounter may rise to the rank of exalted. The members of this echelon are the most favored of Tzeentch's mortal servants, powerful wizards who command the Legion's armies and who steer the course of the galaxy towards one of the horrific fates they have foreseen. Without fail, exalted sorcerers are exceptional warriors. Their genetically augmented bodies were built for the savagery of combat, and through the gifts of their patron gods have been enhanced by mutation. Some have grown additional limbs, or have eyes that exude flames when they look hatefully upon their foes. By drawing upon their reserves of psychic energy, an exalted sorcerer can further bolster his martial prowess in terrifying ways. Complex spells are woven amidst the swirl of combat that allow them to perceive the movements of their enemies, seeing feints and ambushes in their mind's eye, then striking back with deadly precision. With a sonorous curse, they fire malefic bolts to blast their foes limb from limb, or entangle them with cruel hexes. An exalted sorcerer's rank in the Legion's hierarchy is not fixed. As servants of Tzeentch, they are acutely aware that the favor given them may change at any moment. As such, they must strive tirelessly to maintain their position, subjugating those who covet their power through manipulation, deceit, and open displays of force. In this way, exalted sorcerers gather beneath them many thralls, lesser sorcerers who serve the wiles of their master. Many of these sorcerers are unaware that they are pawns in an exalted sorcerer's grandiose schemes, for their enslavement is veiled by subtle lies and constantly shifting promises. To an exalted sorcerer, the warriors they command are a resource to be deployed, akin to the sacrificial components used in one of his rituals. An exalted sorcerer seeks only his own selfish ends, and will send ranks of Rubicae and dozens of subordinate sorcerers to die, if this will further a much greater goal. However, they are not wasteful with the armies at their disposal, and carefully measure the ripple effect each Thrallband's actions will have in the vast sea of causality. Each and every battle is but a small component of a war, and war itself is only a means through which they see change spread across the galaxy. An exalted sorcerer will pursue any strategy that his portents deem effective and can change tactics with fluid ease as the shifting tides of battle give spark to his dark imagination. For most exalted sorcerers, the ultimate goal is to prove themselves worthy of Tzeentch's greatest blessing, to be freed of their mortal forms and transformed into a being of even greater power, a demon prince. End quote. Now that we have heard about the sorcerers that come from the traitor or rebel Astartes, and there is always a difference between those who have endured and waged the long war, and those who are Johnny-come-lately, in the form of the rebel Astartes, but I digress. One might think, that is that then, but it is far from the complete picture. For there are so many ways in which a sorcerer of chaos can arise, so many different origins possible. There are entire Xenos alien races that are utterly devoted to the worship of one, if not all, of the corrupting dark gods of chaos. Any one of them can erupt onto the stellar maps in an explosion of aggression, warfare, and death. Cut off by warp storms, having a home planet that is not near a warp node, or Mandeville point, being too far out in unconquered and uncharted territory. There are so many ways that a Xenos race can be presently missed by every single eye in the Imperium. And that is without the situation where the alert has been raised in a region, only for the report to languish for days, months, years, or even decades, in the midst of the Imperial bureaucracy. An occurrence that happens more frequently than any are willing to admit, and without admittance of the problem, they can never solve it. But more than this, humanity itself is the ultimate carrier and infector of others with the taint of chaos. For the Eldar birthed but one god, Slaanesh, she who thirsts. It is the collected energies of many beings, many races and many civilizations that have caused the birth of the other three gods, Khorne, Tzeentch, and Grandfather Nurgle. But it is thought by the Eldar and many others, as is reflected in the lore, that somehow humanity has been more important than any other factor in the forming of these three, and the feeding of even the fourth. Humanity is inextricably tied to the warp, in a way that I will definitely talk about in more depth as time goes on, if we are able. But I digress again. Humans are latently psychic, and more of them are being born with this trait every year. Since the opening of the Cicatrix Maledictum, the energies of the warp have been bleeding into real space, the materium, more than ever before. And these energies have augmented the powers of all psychers, from Eldar down. It is in this connection to the warp, now engorged by the tear across reality, that caused chaos manipulation. As each psyker is born, a new doorway into our reality is forged. A potent being that could be a warrior of light usually ends in being a terrible threat to anyone on the same planet, if not system or sector. And the whispers of the corrupting powers are only gaining in strength, volume, and subtle coercion as the tear widens. But now we have fully seen how prevalent these beings are, and how much more so with each passing day. Let us now go to the difference that I refer to in what the Librarian, or sanctioned psyker of the Imperium, are, when compared to the Sorcerer of Chaos. For I have a simplistic way in which I can frame the situation, I hope. I like to view the Imperial Psycho or Librarian as that, a psychic. They have power and can form it into effects, but usually only really develop powers according to their natural preponderance. In a nutshell, they have almost classes or disciplines that they can try to master, but will only ever really excel at the ones that they already have a talent in. This is not the case for the Sorcerer. For they may have the same levels of power initially, but what they do with it, how it is augmented, and how it is used are so very different. Where a Psyker is the equivalent of a prize fighter, a boxer, a Sorcerer is at the highest level of martial arts. They have more depth, more subtlety, and more utility. For the basis of much of Warhammer, and especially Warhammer 40k, is in the candle-dripping horror of the occult. The Lovecraftian old ones, the Moorcroft Chaos Guards, the modern magics of Harry Potter, or the deep knowledge about the very threads that make up the universe, like the rich worlds of Tolkien or C.S. Lewis. It resides in the dark threat of the mystic circle, the terror of the unknown, and the romanticized vision of the wizard like Crowley or Mathers. For the Chaos worshippers wield high, medium, and low magics. The lesser and greater keys, rites, rituals, herbs, hexes, potions, mystic ciphers, scripts, runes, sigils, chants, mudras, numerology, dowsing, prognostication through trance, cards, images or omens, chakras and circles. All are real, and all have their origins in the Chaos realm, placed in the real world by madmen and maniacs, enthralled to the dark gods. And it is in this gothic horror of mysticism that the Sorcerers excel as both foil and foible to all of the writers of the Black Library. They are literally walking MacGuffins that can make storytelling without boundary a possibility, while still residing in an overtly science fiction setting. Where the Librarian of the Astartes is more akin to a psychic superhero, the Sorcerer of Chaos is far more akin to a high fantasy warlock or necromancer. They gain power through study, pacts and knowledge. They are boundless in the breadth of their abilities due to this. They can learn nearly anything, as they are not so constrained by the invisible fetters and boundaries that the Imperial Psychers require to prevent them from falling to madness and chaos. The Sorcerer always has his ear to the etheric wind and leans into the voices, gaining power from their honeyed words that drip secrets into their very souls. Burning hellhounds summoned with the blood of virgins and the tears of the righteous, facing off against genetically engineered walking tanks who suffer not the witch to live. Gorgeous. The Warhammer setting is a thing of infinite contradictions, a smelting pot of a myriad of the most famous and compelling of settings that many feel is somehow greater than the sum of its parts. And the mysticism and horror of the setting is what I believe to be one of its most compelling. Now, no matter what you do today, do try to make some time for fun. Toodaloo.